Shri Eknathi Bhagavad Satsang. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha, Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha, Om Shri Saraswataya Namaha, Om Shri Guru Datatre Namaha, Om Shri Mahalakshmi Namaha. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurur Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. So we are doing Shri Eknathi Bhagavad. Today we'll be continuing Shri Eknathi Bhagavad chapter 2 from verse 361 onwards. Know that thus all the functions of the mind are surrendered easily to the self, the Atman. Now listen to the way in which the organs of senses and action are surrendered to God. So yesterday we learned about the mind. Today we are going to learn about the senses and actions and how they are surrendered to the God. When a lamp is lit in a house, its light spreads outside also, through the windows. Similarly, when God is manifest in the mind, it is also evident in the functions of organs through their devotional activities. I will tell you in detail the functions of organs which are of their own accord offered to God. When the vision looks at any visible object, it sees God in that object. Thus, in the way of devotion, the vision together with the seen object is surrendered to God. This is very beautifully explained. So what is being taught here? See, the most important lesson which we have been taught since our childhood is that to see God in everything. Now here we are understanding how do we, use our senses and action to see to surrender to the divine Lord. But that surrender can happen only when we see the divine Lord in that, in everything. So here he begins with saying, what is he saying? So when a lamp is lit in the house, its light spreads outside also through the windows. Okay. Similarly, when God is manifest in the mind. So what happens? The God is manifest. So we first learnt about mind. How do you surrender the mind in devotion to the divine Lord, at his lotus feet? That's what we learnt yesterday. And in that, it was very beautifully explained how every thought, everything that comes in the mind has to be the thought of the divine Lord alone. So when you think good thoughts, everything good will get cultivated. Now the second aspect is when the God is manifest in the mind, it is also evident in the functions of organs through their devotional activities. So what does it mean? So it in the functions of organs. So when you're seeing, what do you see? You're going to see God in everything because your mind is filled with the devotion of the divine Lord. Your thoughts are purified. You're only going to think all the good stuff. You're only going to think about Krishna Bhagwan. So when such is the case, what happens through your senses and action. So first is senses, the functions of sense organs. That's the functions of organs through their devotional activities. So everything that you see, you speak, you hear, you smell, touch, everything. You're only going to see the divine Lord alone. I will tell you in detail the functions of organs which are of their own accord offered to God. Now what are we talking? How do we offer every aspect, that is the thoughts, the actions, everything to the divine Lord? When the vision looks at any visible object, it sees God in that object. Now what are we talking about? When you see anything, you're only going to see God in that object. Even it could be anybody. So just imagine you're just wandering around and you're in the forest or you have a beautiful garden. When you see the flower, what is the first thought that comes to your mind? I want to offer this flower unto the lotus feet of my Gurudev or Lord Shri Krishna Bhagwan. When in the morning when I go out, in the garden there are beautiful flowers. The first thing is I pluck those flowers and offer it to the divine Lord. That's the first thought that comes. So what you see, the action in the object, you see in that object the divinity. So when you do this in everything, so if you're going to make some food, what are you thinking? I want to offer this for the divine Lord. So offering everything. And even if you smell, oh, that's a beautiful smell. Oh, this must be coming from this plant. This is a flower. I want to offer it to the divine Lord. Oh, that is my Krishna Bhagwan. So in everything you're seeing God. So that's the way you're surrendering. You're offering everything to the divine Lord alone. So everything that you do, what you see, what you touch, what you eat, what you taste, what you smell, everything is offered to him. Now here we spoke about the vision, to see God in everything. See, one of the most beautiful lessons which my Guruji will always teach is that, See, okay, now you can see God in everything. It's not everything. You can see God in some things. You know why I say something? Because say tomorrow itself you have to confront an enemy of yours. Can you see God in your enemy? My Guruji will always ask me this question. If this person comes in front of you, whom you might not be, whom you might not like, you consider that individual as an enemy. Now, if that is the case, if that person comes in front of you, would you think you will be able to see God in that person? No, absolutely not. The first thing the mind will come and say, no, that person is, I do not like this person. Now, what has come in here? Like. Now, how can you see then God in every object? It's not possible. But in spiritual world, what we have been taught is that everything in this world, is a creation of the divine Lord, and it is for us to practice to see God in every object. And God, Krishna Bhagwan can take your, can come in the form of your enemy. Are you going to deny him? No, you can't. So this is a very important lesson, and it is not easy to practice this, let me tell you that much. But you have to consciously make an effort to practice the one you love the most, but just see him in everything. And that way, what happens is you give up this concept of likes and dislikes. When we start practicing to see God in every object, whatever the object is there in front of you, whether you like it or not, when you start seeing Krishna Bhagwan in that object, you will stop, having this pairs of opposites, which is called like and dislike. And that is where you will start developing what is called the equanimity of mind. And when you don't have the likes and dislikes, you will also stop performing karmic actions. So let us continue. So when the vision looks at any visible object, it sees God in that object. Thus, in the way of devotion, the vision together with the seen object is surrendered to God. So when you see God, you surrendered, your action to God of seeing anything that you see. Next, when all the three, the observer, the act of observation, and the things observed are conceived as one unity, the vision is automatically sublimated into Brahman. In this way, the devotee surrenders the vision to God. So what is he saying? Now, three things happen here, right? When you're seeing something, what happens? The observer, so who's observing? You are observing. The act of observation, so what are you doing? You're actually the act itself, you're seeing something, right? And the things are observed. What is being observed? There's an object, there's a beautiful flower, you're observing the flower. Things observed are conceived as one unity, so everything becomes one alone. The vision is automatically sublimated into Brahman. So when all the three act becomes one, then the vision is automatically sublimated into Brahman, that is the divine being. In this way, the devotee surrenders the vision to God. So when we understand everything is the divine Lord alone, then the whole act itself is surrendered to the divine Lord. The vision, what happens? The devotee, that you as a devotee surrenders the vision to the God. The power which manifests the object of observation as the object of eyesight becomes the power which acts like the power of seeing in the eyesight. This is the non-separateness which the devotee applies himself to God through his vision. This is very beautifully explained. What does it say? See, when we say, when you see, what would you say? I am seeing. Now, when you say I am seeing, what happens? You're referring to your individual I. Your identity is with the individual of who you are. And that's an individual self, which is also equivalent to ego. It's I who's seeing. You are seeing as an independent person. But what is being taught here? The power which manifests the object of observation as the object of eyesight. So what is the power which manifests? The object of observation as the eyesight. So you have an eyes and you have an eyesight. There is a power which is manifesting for you to see. Then becomes the power which acts like the power of seeing. Now what happens? That becomes the power, acts like the power of seeing. See, till you don't have the power to see, you are going to be blind. So you can't see. Now who's given this power? It is the divine Lord, the creation. You have been created, you have been given the vision. So that becomes the power of seeing in the eyesight. So there is something which is triggering you to, which is enabling you to see, and that is the power of seeing in the eyesight. Okay, now what happens? This is the non-separateness. So the eyesight and the power of seeing are one only, correct? So if you have an eyesight and if you don't have the power to see, you're going to be blind. Now here both are one. So this is the non-separateness which the devotee applies himself to God through his vision. So what is the devotee saying? The devotee is saying, I am seeing through the vision of the divine Lord. That is what he's saying. He's saying the power of seeing is the vision of the divine Lord. It is not I who sees. It is through the vision of the divine Lord I am able to see. Which means he attributes it to the divine Lord. So he's saying the devotee applies himself to God through his vision. So what you say, let whatever I see is through the vision of the divine Lord. Like just a simple example. In Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna was given the vision by Lord Shri Krishna Bhagwan. What was the vision given to him? To see his Virat Swaroop. Nobody got that vision, but Lord Shri Krishna blessed Arjuna with the vision to see him in that form. And also he was blessed, he gave him the vision to see him in the four-armed form as well. So here the devotee is attributing to God. That's what he's talking about. Then when one conceives that there are the three aspects in one thing, and there is truth and there is one truth, one thing in all the three aspects, it is a beautiful way of seeing, and this is the offering with the limbs and the organs. Now what is being told here? When one conceives that there are the three aspects in one thing, and there is one truth, means the what are the three things? The observer. So we did just an example. So I'm reiterating what are the three things. One is the observer, the act of observation, and the things observed. Observer is you. The act of observation, you're seeing, and the things that is being observed. So three things. Now what is he saying? When one conceives that there are the three aspects in one thing, and there is one truth. So all three things are one alone, and what is he saying? There is only one truth. There is nothing more than that. What is the truth? It is God. You are able to see everything with him, with his grace alone, with the vision, the power of his, the power that he has given you, the vision to see. That's everything is one alone. And there is one truth. One thing in all the three aspects, the one thing in all the three aspects, the power to see, right? We did this. So it's the power. And who has given you the power? It is God's vision. It is his power. You are able to see everything. It is a beautiful way of seeing. And this is the offering with the limbs and the organs. He has given an example. How then? It's a way of looking at it, looking at everything in life. And that is the way of offering with the limbs. Limbs means your organs of actions, and the organs. Limbs is your hands and legs, and your organs. Everything, you have to surrender to the divine Lord. That is what he's saying. All the offerings have to first be made to the divine Lord. Then our eyes see many new objects at all times, but the devotee sees everything as Atman only, and thus they enjoy the auspicious festival of offering the faculty of sight to God. So what are they saying? Very simple. He's saying our eyes will see many things in this world, new objects at all times. We are constantly seeing new things. But the devotees of the Lord, the devotees see everything as Atman only. Means what? Everything is as Paramatma alone. The Lord has manifested himself. Everybody, everything, this entire universe, the creation, be it inanimate or animate object, everything is divine Lord. That is the Paramatman itself. And thus they enjoy the auspicious festival. The auspicious festival of offering the faculty of sight to God. So what are they offering? The faculty of sight to God. Because of this ability to see, God in everything. Next, thus they surrendered to Brahman only, the quality of seeing which is inherent in the eyes. Now, O king, please know from me how they offer the faculty of hearing to Brahman. Now, what is he saying? Now, thus, this is the way in which they surrender to the divine Lord. Brahman means we're talking about the Paramatman, which is also unmanifest. Here Brahman is unmanifest divinity. So they surrendered to Brahman only. The quality of seeing, which is inherent in the eyes. See, my Guruji will always say something very beautiful. He says, it is what you see that matters. Here it's a very important word, the quality of seeing, which is inherent in the eyes. It's very powerful. What does that mean? The ability, quality of seeing only the good things. But see, the seeing also is very unique. What do you see? You take two different people and ask them, you put an object in front of them and tell them, what do you see in this? And the answer, I'm sure you will come across that both of them are going to give something very different. One might say, oh, this flower looks, so for example, if you're taking a jasmine flower and asking them, what do you see in this? Some may say, oh, I see it, it's a beautifully white color, or the other person might say, no, it looks a little bit creamish. Whatever what they can perceive or what they see, this ability to see is very different, and it also depends on your nature. So to see God in everything is the quality of seeing. So how do you see matters, and that is a practice. You have to train yourself to seeing good in everything. This is something my Guruji will always keep teaching us. Why? Remember, what we see depends on how we have trained ourselves. What we see, what we smell, what we touch, what we hear. Either you have to see the upside or you can see the downside in the same object. But what you see matters completely with you. That is why he's giving a very important word. The quality of seeing, which is inherent in the eyes. See, God has created everything in a very beautiful manner. What has happened is a man has degenerated, or he's come down. We have gone off the path. So the first thing we look at is something wrong in an object. So my Guruji will say, you have to practice seeing good in it. You have to practice seeing God in it. See, this entire universe is the creation of the divine Lord. Everything is happening as per the will of the divine Lord. So why is that you're always seeing something wrong in everything? So my Guruji will say, you have to see good in everything. Can you see God in everything? No, that's not the first thing that comes to us, but that is what he's telling that we have to practice. So how you see also matters. The quality of seeing, which is inherent, means what? It is already there. It is inherent in the eyes. But how you train the eyes is in your hands. That is what we are learning here. Now, O King, please know from me how they offer the faculty of hearing to Brahman. Now we are going to learn about how do we offer what we hear to Brahman. He who directs the speech to utter the word, the sound, has himself become the listener in the ears, and he is also one who knows the meaning of the words. This becomes the act of offering to Brahman the faculty of hearing. Now what is he saying? He who directs the speech to utter the word. See, that is why most important. What comes out of your mouth has to be very sweet. Has to be full of nectar, has to be full of goodness, has to be full of love. So he who directs the speech to utter the word. The sound has himself become the listener in the ears. The first is the sound, which then forms the words, right? You're say something, the sound you want to say. Then the sound has himself become the listener in the ears. And he is also one who knows the meaning of the words. So when I speak to you, now you're able to listen. We are listening to the most beautiful teaching right here, which is Eknath Maharaj is beautifully describing this Uddhav Gita. He's giving his own explanation. And what are we doing? So I am speaking, you're able to listen to the words, the sound and the words, and you're able to imbibe. Now what happens? And he is also one who knows the meaning of the words. You're able to understand the meaning which I am speaking. This becomes the act of offering to Brahman the faculty of hearing. So when you offer it to the divine Lord, whatever you're hearing, you're offering to him, and then the essence of it is getting assimilated, and you're imbibing that knowledge that is coming, the words which you're hearing. But most important, more than hearing, we have to listen in, because you have to listen. Only then the essence of the words go within, deep within us. But most important, what should you first do? You have to offer that to the divine Lord. As soon as the word is uttered and it becomes articulate, the director of speech becomes present prior to the word and after the word. Thus, the devotion by spoken word becomes our offering very naturally, and this is the way in which hearing is also surrendered to Brahman. So what is he saying? As soon as the word is uttered and it becomes articulate, the moment I am speaking, the words are becoming articulate. So you are able to, understand. The director of speech becomes present. So that whoever is the director of the speech, he becomes present prior to the word and after the word. Because one is, I have to exactly say the word, and that is one before saying and after saying. Thus, that devotion by spoken word becomes our offering. So, what is most important? Devotion. Devotion by spoken word. See, these are the words. When I say the words are of wisdom of the divine Lord, I do not speak, means it's an offering first, because I cannot speak, I cannot know. That is the truth. So, it is an offering. And when the words are coming from my mouth, you are able to hear. I'm articulating that word and you're listening in. So both of us, we are offering it to the divine Lord in devotion. Thus, that devotion by spoken word becomes our offering very naturally. It's a natural thing. And that bhav, that expression within your heart has to be felt. Everything is offered to him. Let me hear all the good stuff. Let me only listen to the words of, the divine Lord, the grandeur, the glory, the love. I want to know you more. When we sit for satsang, what are we doing? We're reading and listening in. We want to understand. That itself is an offering. We offer everything to him in devotion. And this is the way in which hearing is also surrendered to Brahman. When the word is uttered, immediately the meaning becomes manifest, and one who utters the word appreciates the sweetness of the meaning, and in the very hearing of the word or the sound, there is great interest in the devotion to God. So what are we doing? This is exactly what we are doing. You are listening in, I'm reading and listening in, both. And in our heart, we have what? Devotion to the God. And about whom are we learning? We are learning the greatness of this divine Lord. What are his teachings? How do we live? How do we attain, prema, that is love and devotion unto the lotus feet of Krishna Bhagavan. That is all it is for us. His greatness, grandeur, glory. We are learning all of that. What is this Uddhav Gita? What is the last message which Krishna Bhagavan taught Uddhava? We also want to know. That is what we are doing here. And so beautifully it is explained. So, as soon as the ear listens to the word, the meaning of the word creates devotion to God. And thus, listening faculty becomes identified with God, who is the creator of the world. Very, very beautiful. What is he saying? As soon as your ear, listens to the word and the meaning of the word, listens to the word, the meaning of the word creates the meaning. Whatever the meaning, you listen in, it creates devotion to God. How beautiful is it? And thus listening faculty, the ability to listen, becomes identified with the God, who is the creator of this world. Next, one who directs the speech is God. And when the unity with God is firm, the devotion of the God is the subject of hearing. And thus it is surrendered to Brahman. I just explained to you. It's so beautiful. The one who directs the speech is God. He's the one who's directing the speech. Nobody else. And when the unity with God is firm, the oneness with the God, you have to feel the oneness. Then the devotion of the God is the subject of hearing. Just the devotion is the subject of hearing. That is why my Guruji will say you have to have the ekagrita. Means what? Single pointed devotion. Your focus has to be there, attention has to be there. Understand that word is penetrating your heart, just through the faculty of hearing. and listening in. It's penetrating deep inside your heart, and that is creating devotion to God. That is why seeing, listening in is very, very critical. And that ekagrita, the way you sit, you should not be fidgety, fidgeting and all that. He taught us, my Krishna Guruji was teaching about it. How do you sit in attention and looking in the camera and listening in with very complete attention and focusing on what is being taught. If you have the scriptures, you can just follow through it. So this is a very important way of listening in, and when you listen in, it creates devotion to God. And then the form, so what happens? One who directs the speech is God, and when the unity with God is firm, the devotion of God is the subject of hearing, and thus it is surrendered to Brahman. When the word of Sadguru is heard, the mind with its qualities merged into itself and is sublimated. Thus the hearing becomes surrendered to Brahman, and thus by devotion, the faculty of hearing becomes worth its name. Very beautiful. Now, he's got a most important word here. When the word of Sadguru is heard, what does it mean? Your Guru is expounding, when the word comes from the mouth of your Gurudev, what happens? The mind with its qualities merge into itself. The mind with its qualities. What are its qualities? Whatever might the qualities. The mind has its own mind too. It has its own nature. And then what happens? Merges into itself and is sublimated. Whatever the thoughts that might be going in, whatever that might be having, it merges. It stops talking, because you are focusing to the word of what is coming from the word mouth of your Sadguru, and thus the hearing becomes surrendered at that moment in time. The hearing becomes surrendered to Brahman, and thus by devotion, the faculty of hearing becomes worth its name. So thus by surrendering, then with devotion, and thus by devotion, the faculty of hearing, the faculty when you are hearing through your ear, becomes worth its name, When the hearing hears itself, it becomes identified with Brahman. This is unintentional devotion. You don't even know this is happening. That is so beautiful. So how does it work? When the hearing hears itself. So when the hearing, who's hearing? In the ear, hearing itself becomes identified with Brahman. You are only listening to the words of God, and for you, everything is one only. It becomes one. You're so lost in that word. You become one with that faculty. And then this is the unintentional devotion. You don't even know that. You're not intending, you're not forcing yourself. It is called the unintentional devotion. It just so happens very naturally. Then, now about nose. When the God is pleased by the devotion, he becomes the fragrance of the essence. And the great God thus receives the smell through nose, which is the act of unity with Brahman. Very simple. What is he saying? Now about nose, when the God is pleased by your devotion, now you are so devoted to the divine Lord. And then because of this devotion, he's pleased. And then what does he do? He becomes the fragrance of the essence, okay? And the great God thus receives the smell through nose. So what happens? It's not, when you smell it, you're not saying, oh, I'm enjoying the smell. Oh, this is the flower I would like to offer to Lord Shri Krishna Bhagavan. See, understand, most important, when you're offering anything, which is the fragrance, right? You burn an incense stick. My Guruji will always, tell me this. When we go to the shop to buy the incense stick, I have a habit of trying to figure out whether the smell is good or not. My Guruji will say, Rajma, don't smell it. You know why? Because we have to offer that incense to God first. So if you smell, you are taking in the smell. So that doesn't become an offering because you've already tasted it. Meaning here we have smelled it. So we do not offer something which you have already smelled. So my Guruji will say, okay, you try it out, but don't smell it. So even when we bring flowers or anything, we should not smell it first. We have to first offer to the God and then take the fragrance in. So that is first offering the fragrance of the essence. The essence is in that flower, the smell, the fragrance, that's the fragrance, and fragrance of the essence. And the great God thus receives the smell. Then he receives the smell through nose, but for which you have to be in unity with him. Your devotion has to be the highest. which is the act of unity with Brahman. Then it is God who gives to the flower its flowerness, and it is He who becomes the nose, which smells the fragrance. Thus God takes up all the fragrance, which is the devotion of faculty of smelling. How beautiful. Now here he's saying it is God who gives to the flower its flowerness. What does flowerness mean? The essence of smell. That's what He gives, the faculty. It is God who has created it, right? And it is He who becomes the nose. Why? He wants to enjoy. When we say enjoy, it's not enjoy. He wants to, like when we say, okay, he's an enjoyer, Rasika. Okay, Krishna Bhagwan is called the highest Rasika. So he wants to enjoy the fragrance. So he becomes the nose which smells the fragrance. Thus God takes up all the fragrance, which is the devotion of the faculty of smell. Now it's a devotion that it matters, and that is the faculty of smelling. When the quality of perceiving the fragrance in the cavity of the nostril is surrendered to God, it is the kind of devotion of the nose. Now what should we do? When the quality of perceiving the fragrance in the cavity of the nostril is surrendered to God, it is the kind of devotion of the nose. So which means even before you smell, you surrender to the divine Lord. You should not smell first. So you should always surrender to it. Surrender to the divine Lord and then partake of it. So then what happens? Then the activity becomes the devotion of the nose. So that's what has to be done now. Now next thing is now about the taste. When the tongue is eager to take the taste of anything, the God Himself becomes the taste as well as the enjoyer of the taste. So here the word enjoyer is come, means He's a Rasika. Thus automatically the tongue, which is with its faculty is tasting, is surrendered to God, the Lord Shri Krishna. What is He saying? Now about the taste. When the tongue is eager to take the taste of anything, any food, okay, the God Himself becomes the taste as well as the enjoyer of the taste. So what we do, anything that we first make at home, you offer that to the divine Lord. See, there's a very beautiful story in Ramayana. I'm sure all of you know about Shabari. Okay, she was a devotee of the Lord Rama. So she knew Sri Ram was coming. So what did she do? She went to this. There is, I don't know what you call it's kind of a berry, but in Hindi they call it bear. Okay, it's a red color small fruit. Now she went to this plant, the berry plant. She was plucking those beautiful berries, and what she did was she was tasting each of the fruit. She didn't want to give the fruit which tasted sour. So Shabari would put that fruit in her mouth, and if it was sweet, she would keep it aside for Sri Ram, and anything that tasted sweet, bitter and sour, she would discard them. Now that was her devotion. See, she wanted to offer the sweetest of the fruit to Sri Ram. And then when Sri Ram came, she offered this fruit, the berries, to him. And he ate it, with all the, his heart and soul, offered whatever that we will say, oh, it is she tasted, she's offering his juta means which is tasted, you are tasting. You can't offer something like that to the divine Lord. But here it was Shabari's love and devotion that Sri Ram accepted it, and he enjoyed this fruit which she had kept for him. She was waiting for such a long time to meet Sri Ram. But what is it being said here? You have to become like Shabari to do that. We cannot have our mind. We cannot first partake of something and then offer to the divine Lord. We have to first offer everything. So what we do is, when we make the Naivedya, which is the offering for the God, that is Sri Krishna Bhagwan, you put your heart and soul in cooking that. You put all your love, and that it has to taste it has to have the most beautiful taste for him, and he needs to enjoy it. And that is how you make the food and offer to him. But we do not offer anything that we taste first. But in devotion, you want to give him the best of the food. So you try to just taste a little bit to check if everything is good in that food, and then you offer. But when we are doing the puja, when we are doing the prayer, we don't taste anything at all. We cook with love. And we just say, Lord Krishna Bhagwan, we offer this to you. Please ensure this is going to taste the way you like it. And that's the way you have to surrender and then do the cooking. And then, however the Lord likes it, that food is going to taste in that manner for Him. But you have to put your heart and soul in cooking for Him. That's what is being said here. So, when the tongue is eager to take the taste of anything, the God Himself becomes the taste as well as the enjoyer of the taste. So, thus automatically the tongue with its faculty of tasting is surrendered to God, the Lord Shri Krishna. The taste becomes God, and the tongue then really experiences the surrendering of its experience, its sensation to Lord. Actually, the tongue, the taste, and the enjoying of the taste are three in one at the level of the Atman. When the taste is taken by the tongue with this concept or faith, there is extraordinary bliss, the joy in the organ, the tongue. Now, I'll tell you a very unique thing over here. This is a very interesting thing that is being explained. So we all have a habit, we are born in certain place, we are used to certain food patterns, and we have certain likes and dislikes. So when you meet the Guru, what happens? Now, it's not about your liking anymore, it's about thou. What does the Guru like? What does Krishna Bhagwan like? I want to eat that, I want to make that for him. And where is Krishna Bhagwan? He's in your heart. So you're going to offer yourself whatever the food that Krishna Bhagwan likes. So you're going to make the most, the favorite dish of Sri Krishna Bhagwan, and you're going to eat. You're not going to eat for yourself, you're going to eat it for Krishna Bhagwan. So when you accept it in that manner and when you eat, the food will taste extraordinarily amazing. It might not even have anything in it. We make the simple, my Guruji, so we call it Annapurna. We make the basic rice, and there is a lentil that's called dal. It has nothing in it except for three things. That is the dal, that's the lentil, and there is salt and ghee. That is all. And it is cooked in a particular manner, and that is what we offer. That's the main essence of the food. Okay. And my Guruji, my Krishna Guruji, he loves that. And all the pujas, and pretty often that's the food we make. And it has got the highest taste which you can't even imagine. It's so unique. Because you know why? That is what Lord Shri Krishna Bhagwan loves. And that taste is amazing. You're not eating it for yourself, you're eating it for the Lord. So when you taste that food, it's going to taste exceptionally beautiful. That is what it is. So anything that you cook, you have to cook for the divine Lord. And when you eat that as a prasad, that as a blessed food, then it becomes an offering to the Lord even within yourself. That is what is the explanation. Though the tongue may appreciate various tastes such as bitter, sweet, sour, etc., it all becomes one Brahma Rasa, joy in Brahman, and naturally a source of great joy. Thus, the tongue through its indulgence in the taste becomes an offering to the Lord. Now, O King, I will tell you how the sense of touch becomes an offering to Brahman. Please listen. When we try to touch something by our hand or any part of body, then Paramatman beyond the body becomes manifest in the body, and whatever we touch, that itself becomes an offering to Brahman. If the skin wishes to touch anything, there is no separate object which can be touched. There is only Lord Shri Krishna in that touch. Thus, that touch becomes the offering to the Lord. Now, this is very beautiful. So what happens? We're talking about the faculty of touch now. Have you experienced, when you come in the presence of the Divine Lord, especially your Gurudev, have you seen it's like a magnet? There is something that's amazing. It's an attraction. There's an energy felt. And the moment you touch his lotus feet, there is something magical that happens. That touch gives you a very, very, very soothing, divine experience. When you touch his lotus feet, just the touch, there's something that happens when when we bow down at the lotus feet of your Gurudev. There is some magical powers that goes in. Why? Because it's a touch of that skin. That's a touch presence. You're touching the Lord Shri Krishna Bhagwan. It is not a touch of some physical body. It is beyond that. And this cannot be explained adequately in words. It is an experience you will feel. I'm sure everybody has different experiences coming in presence of any divine being. When you touch them, when you touch the things they use, it has the essence. And the touch itself, what is being said here? It is Lord Shri Krishna Bhagwan. It's saying, here he's saying, When we try to touch something by our hand or any part of the body, then Paramatman becomes beyond the body, becomes manifest in the body. That's what happens. So the Paramatman is manifest in that body. Then what happens? And whatever we touch, and that touch, that itself becomes an offering to Brahman. So anything that we touch, it becomes an offering to Brahman. So it's a very beautiful thing. If the skin wishes to touch, so here that's what it's being said, right? If the skin wishes to touch anything, there is no separate object. Everything is one alone, which can be touched. There is only Lord Shri Krishna in that touch. So that's what happens. When you experience, when you're touching the God, when you're touching your Sadguru, please understand, there's no difference between you and him. It is Lord Shri Krishna himself, which is manifested in the touch. But it is your devotion and your conviction. If you think, I am an independent entity touching, then there is this I, which is going to be separate. But as a devotee, when you're one with the Divine Lord, when you're one with your Gurudev, then you know it is your touching Krishna Bhagwan, and Krishna Bhagwan through you is touching the feet. It's surrendered. It's Paramatman itself. Correct? Then that itself becomes an offering to the Brahman. Then thus that touch becomes the offering to the Lord. Whatever article we try to hold, it becomes the God Almighty. And by this sort of devotion, the real goal of self-realization becomes an actual thing in case of the devotee. This is very important. What is he saying? Whatever article we try to hold, it becomes the God Almighty. And by this sort of devotion, the real goal of self-realization becomes an actual thing in case of the devotee. So whatever you touch, it turns God Almighty. So especially in case of a devotee, what happens? It becomes a real goal. The goal is of self-realization. See, the realization, why do we say self-realization? Means, you know, there's not somebody who can give you this realization from outside you. The self has to reveal itself. And it is a realization that you have. That is, I am the self. That is why we say you are not separate from the Divine Lord. You are a part of that Paramatman itself. You don't have this individual identity. The day you realize, you become one with him. That is what it says. When the hand tries to give something to God, see how devotion takes place while hand gives anything to God. The giver, the receiver, and the thing to be given become one unit and not three aspects. And that Trinity becomes God only. Now this is beautiful. So anything when you offer to God, what happens? Now one is the hand which is offering, number one. Then the act of offering, number two. And what is the third one? That is the giver, the receiver, and the things to be given. So you are the one who's offering. That is the giver. And there is God who is receiving. And the act of giving. All these three things become one only. That is why my Guruji will always say, who is this I who is giving? See, when we offer, this is a very important lesson for you to understand. You can't give anything to the Divine Lord, because please understand, you, when you think I am giving, it is your individual aham, that is the ego talking. You can't give, you offer. It is him who is getting it offered through you. If he doesn't want to receive, you can't offer it to him. So then this giver doesn't exist at all. So God is very kind. So he accepts from you. Please understand, that is very beautiful. The giver, he makes you to offer to him. And the receiver, who's the receiver here? God Almighty, Krishna Bhagwan is the receiver. And the act of giving, that, you know, the giving itself, all three are one alone. But when individually I say I am giving, then that whole three, that act of itself doesn't exist. I cannot give. Please understand, you are nobody to give. If he does not will, you can't even give. So it's not even give. The word is give means it's an egoistic term. What is most relevant, right word is offering. You can only offer to him. And that is because he's very kind with you. He's in, you know, you're his devotee and he's in love with you. So that is why he makes this possible. So what happens? Then all these three becomes one unit and not three aspects. And that Trinity becomes God only. That whole act is God only. And who's the God here? Shri Krishna Bhagwan. If we walk by our feet, the path itself becomes God. And the walking is as if offered to God. The God who directs the feet to walk is himself the power of the earth to hold. And if we walk with this understanding, the act of walking becomes an offering to God. So what do we say when we walk? Oh, I can't walk, my legs are hurting, my this is hurting. We always say this, but why are you thinking you are walking? Very beautifully explained. Surrender to the Lord and say, Krishna Bhagwan is walking. I am just a tool. That's all. So what is being said? The God who directs the feet to walk. You are not walking. So never ever think I am walking. The God who directs the feet to walk himself is himself the power of the earth to hold. And if we walk with this understanding, the act of walking becomes an offering to God. The word, the utterance of the word, and the one who makes us talk are all together in the mouth. So who's making whom talk? I cannot talk. Who's making whom talk? That's so beautiful. The word, the utterance of the word, and the one who makes us talk are all together in the mouth. When the word sees the God there, it becomes shy. When that shyness is overcome, then only the words become articulate. Therefore, in the talk only, the devotion of God takes place. So that is why we say you have to speak very sweetly. But so when you use your mind and talk, that is when the mind comes. So you understand, when you use your mind, you're going to be bitter, you're going to say all the negative things. Every word from your mouth is going to be wrong. But when you know it is Krishna Bhagwan is talking through you, you're going to be madhur. Madhur means sweet. So every word from your mouth is going to be so sweet. It's full of love. It's full of expression of love, your devotion to him. It's going to be full of goodness. And this is what my Guruji will say. The way you speak matters. Every word, weigh every word and speak. Never use your mind to talk. Surrender that action of speaking as well. How beautifully explained. Therefore, in the talk, only the devotion to God takes place. Then the word becomes absorbed in the wordless. It is that wordless which is expressed by the word. Know that this is the act of surrendering together with the one who surrenders. Even the act of surrendering together with the one who surrenders. If you say, I surrender, I has to surrender. But when you decimate, just the surrendering, the act of surrendering becomes one with the one who surrenders. Together with the one who surrenders. Then when we believe that within the speech resides the God who directs the utterance of speech, this is very important, then the words become already offered while they are uttered. Thus the devotion to God is done by the faculty of speech. Understand, we call it Vak. It's Ma Saraswati. Okay, the word which comes from your mouth has to be very sweet and good. That is Vidya, knowledge. What we are doing here is everything, understanding how this faculty has to be surrendered to Krishna Bhagwan. So our words are to be very, very beautiful. So when we believe that within the speech resides the God who directs the utterance of the speech, and who's the God here? We're talking of Ma Saraswati, Vidya. It's God, Krishna Bhagwan. What does this say? The grace, in Tripura Rahasyam, do you remember? Tripura says, I am the grace and the Vidya. Without her grace, the Vidya is not going to come. So the speech, whatever the words come, also is God. Then the words become already offered. So when it is the words of the Divine Lord, by the grace, by the Vidya, what happens? It is already offered. Whatever the words have to be uttered is already offered to the God. Thus the devotion to God is done by the faculty of speech. Through this way, the devotion to God is done by the faculty of this speech. So, he who is firm in his devotion through his body, mind and speech is using his pride of his firmness, his determination to be offered to God in a kind of devotion. Now, the wave which is in the sea says, the cloud which gives satisfaction, coolness and nutrition to the world is actually born out of me. So, what are we saying here? He who is firm in his devotion through his body, mind and speech is using his pride of his firmness, his determination to be offered to God in a kind of devotion. Now, because we are saying, okay, I am doing all of this. This I is what you have to surrender to the God. It is thou who are getting it done through me. I am mere thy devotee. This is the bhav, means this is the feeling you have to constantly have. Otherwise, your ego is always going to say I. The I is going to be detrimental in your ability to grow in devotion. So I'll finish 2 more verses and we'll stop here. By my power only the grains are ripe, by my power only rivers are flowing and reaching the seas, becoming one with it. Similarly, the devotee of God becomes complete in himself, and with the pride of his completeness starts his devotion. Please listen to the sign of that devotion. Now we are going to enter the next aspect of how this devotion happens, and we will stop here and we will continue this in the next class. So thank you for joining Sri Eknathi Bhagwat Satsang. Have a good day and good evening to you all. God bless.
Recording stopped.